Looking at inflation numbers that was released yesterday, we stated that it drops to 32.15%. And of course, from the comments you have heard, does this really mean that the prices of food are actually coming down? Well, many Nigerians will disagree with you based on what they are feeling. So my guest has joined me right here in the studio. Aliyu Ilias is an economist, and he joined me here. Good morning, Aliyu Ilias.
Thank you for having me.
All right, let's quickly get your reaction. You've seen some of the comments there from our viewers there. What do you make of some of the reactions there that you saw?
Quite interesting. I think it's a good news because we want to see reduction in inflation. So we only hope to see continuous reduction because, as it were, it appeared to be temporary because we could see that factors that brings about the drop in inflation are factors that are temporary in nature. Until we can sustain this, that's when we can say yes, there's uhuru. We can now say yes, we are on a good trajectory. But as it is now, it has not actually reflected. And you also agree with me that when you are looking at inflation, discover that it's a month. It is last month's report we are given now. So what will happen next month will be a function of what is happening in the current month. So I think we need to look forward to that. For me, I want to see 5 consistent drop. I think by so doing, we can say yes, we are in the right direction at this time. But from what is happening now, I think it's temporary. So we should tarry a bit with our celebration.
So you believe that in few months from now, inflation will go back to the status quo?
From my findings and as a researcher, I think it will go back from where it is because of what happened recently, especially the increments in the pump price.
All right, Aliyu Ilias, hold your thoughts there. We'll continue that conversation after this break. Don't go away. Glad to have you back. It's still Business Daily right here on Trust Television. And of course, we're still talking inflation numbers that was released yesterday by the National Bureau of Statistics. It indicated that inflation numbers dropped to 32.15%. That is for the month of August. There, of course, we're yet to see what is going to happen in the month of September, given the increase that we have again in the pump price of petrol. And my guest is still right here in the studio, Aliyu Ilias. He's an economist. Before we went on that break, you were talking about the trend not being able will not be able to sustain this trend there. Let me ask you this straight question: do you believe price of food and it is coming down?
Right. Well, I agree that they are coming down. It's mostly perishable produce like tomato that does not have that storage. We don't have that storage capacity, and that's why we continue to have problems. So it's seasonal. So now that it's their season, it comes out, and before you know, it's out. And perhaps they are two different things. The reduction in price and reduction in inflation is also two different things. Because before it will reflect, it takes a lot of time. So for me, I don't think we should celebrate yet. It's just because of the season. We are, Nigerians, we do not really have that where to keep, and we don't do any cargo export to abroad, I would say. So we must find a way to become, and this is how we should be consistent in terms of our farming. Because if what President Tinubu declared state of emergency on food security, this is how we should be having those produce around the year, because there would have been irrigation, there will be other support system that will help farmers to continuously, producing all around our season.
Indeed, but there's also a drop in food inflation there as well. It did drop to 37.52%, which I think is actually a good news for Nigeria, given the fact that it was at almost 40% in the month of July there. So you alluded to the fact that the NBS statistics only study perishable items.
That is not what I'm actually. They study everything. But if you look at inflation, the major driver of our inflation is food-driven inflation.
Yes.
So anything that happens to food is going to reflect on the general inflation. That's what just happened now. And that's why if you go down, see that it's the food inflation that comes down to an extent, maybe marginally, let me use that language, that makes for us to see a marginal drop in the headline inflation. So that's just how it works. Because if you look at even purchasing power now, where does 70% of our income goes into? Is into food. So if you can
food, transportation.
Food is the head of it. Transportation comes second. Because if you check your income, what you expend on food is over 60% of your income. So you could see maybe transport could be like 20, then other one are fighting for, other things are struggling for that, rent, school fee, and a lot of other things. But for me, what happened is a function of food inflation that reflects in the headline inflation.
So you don't think that the CBN policy, monetary policy, is beginning to yield a positive result?
Well, if you look at policy itself is not a one-off thing. It is a function that will affect other things to happen. So sometimes even CBN inflation can find a way to even have reduction in food inflation. And that's why we said if they have the right policy, where people have the appropriate environment, the purchasing power, and also MPR, maybe the rate of interest rate also come down. It will come back to reflect. So it's it's something that goes around. So, but for their monetary policy, for me, I don't think it actually have direct impact, because for me, they are sacrificing growth for inflation, to drop inflation. And if you are doing that, it's a serious problem for a producer, and a farmer also on its own is also producing.
So what you're saying is that the CBN monetary policy is not in any way yielding positive results. And what will you tell them at their next meeting? Should they continue to tighten? There is a suggestion already that they should begin to cut down on MPR.
Well, if you have practiced a particular approach for 1 year, 2 months or thereabout, and does not give you the result, what does that simply mean? You have to review further and look at other variables you have to consider. For me, as a business person, I think if you want a better economy, the major thing is to allow people, MSME, manufacturers, to access funds to do their businesses. By so doing, our GDP increases, purchasing power increases, manufacturing also increases, and bring about employment as well. So it's a factor that we need to consider very. So for me, I think they need to do more by cutting MPR.
Well, probably at their next meeting then. Let's look at the inflation rate in the urban centers. Inflation in urban areas stand about 34.58%. There is an increase of 6.89% compared to what we had in the same period. I'm talking about August 2023. So what do you think is responsible? Why are we having so much high inflation in the urban centers?
And that alluded that it's actually the drop in that, the produce that bring about the other. And that's why I said, a major thing that we have that is helping us is because of the produce, the season. So now, urban, if you look at Nigeria, the way we are wired now, people are no more comfortable in the rural areas because there's insecurity, there's challenges. I can tell you, even the economy of the urban is better than the economy of the rural, because rural people find it difficult to even afford common things to survive.
And it wasn't like that.
In fact, let's give a good example. We all have parents. Possibly they have retired and they are in the rural area. If you send them 10,000 before, it's a good money. But within you would just think that I'm giving my parents 10,000 for what? Because you even know how much. So it's biting harder in those places compared to the city that things happen. So, and I think we need to look into that critically. Everything should be balanced, and that's why we said when you are working on economy, you have to be holistic in nature. Because if you are doing it monetary policy is doing it this way, fiscal policy is withdrawing, it brings about serious problems. And that's why I say it must be a policy that will not be cosmetic in nature, that will not be cut and join in nature.
There should be a synergy.
A synergy, which is very, very key.
Indeed. So let's look at the inflation rates in the rural areas, like you did mention. In the rural areas, there seems to be more, not as high as we have in the urban centers. It's 29.94%. That is for this August 2024. If you compare it to August last year, it's 24.10%. That is still a huge difference there.
Very, very huge. And that's why, if you look at even all our produce, where is it coming from? It's coming from the rural area to the urban centers. So that, and in urban center, there's a lot of competition, a lot of challenges that you have to cater to. Even government presence, the pressure. If you look at even the queue we are having, a lot of things are happening. So I think that's the factors, and that's why we must start working alongside all the area, all the variables that will make things actually work better. Because if anything that happens in urban, in find its way to affect the rural, but it starts in urban because economics actually work more here. We have more industry in the city center.
Do you think we are misplacing our priorities by not developing our rural areas, by not securing our rural areas where food are being produced?
Well, common feeder road is a problem in rural area. I can tell you some people have produce, but to bring it down to the city center, it's the problem. Ordinary bridge that people use to bring their produce down to the city center is a problem. And that's why we say basic infrastructure is very, very key. If you can provide infrastructure for me in my core village and I think everything works well, it's better. I can farm, I can earn my money, I can watch what I want to watch, I can do what I want to do. Why do I have to come to the rush? But I must also remind you that if you look at what happened in Northeast, it brings pressure to Abuja. I don't know if you have taken notice, because most people in Maiduguri, Yobe, find their way to city center or country center from countryside now to the
country center.
To the country center. Simply because they think they're more secure, they have more infrastructure, and they have more money to send back home. So it's a pressure.
But indeed, that also comes with a lot of expenses as well, living in the city center as well.
Right,
with a lot of expenditures that you have.
But it's good you see the money to spend. All right, you are spending the money, but you are getting the money. So compared to where you will be, and you don't have any means, you don't have any means. Nothing is going on, no operations. It becomes a serious problem. That's double jeopardy.
Now let's look at the still way out of food inflation. I'm more concerned about inflation because, of course, you need to have the food in your stomach. According to some people, is the one that will carry the one on your head. So when you said our villages, as it is right now, have no good access roads. They don't have some basic amenities. Don't you think if you go in Abuja here where we are, there are so many places, so many lands that are free that can actually be used for farming and so many other things that can help in producing food and other stuff?
Well, the first thing thanks to Wiki to an extent, because you recall before Wiki came to Abuja, it's not, even me, we have some places that we can farm on, but we are scared of kidnapping majorly. So also in other states, tell me, most major states that are producing food, Benue, Plateau, Kogi, Taraba,
Kano, Zamfara, Katsina.
Kaduna, there are places where you have volatility of insecurity, where people have to even pay, to non-state actor to actually go to their farm. So until we find a way to solve that problem, it is a structural problem. If you don't solve those problems, it becomes in fact, my dad have farm, and he was telling me about how some people, non-state actor, got into the farm, they eat all the crops, and he cannot even say anything. I just, Dad, just find your way home, because if you don't find your way, if you try to fight them, they may come fight you, and nobody will even explain what happens to you in the farm. So it's a serious problem that we need to solve.
Indeed, there a lot need to be done there for us to be able to achieve food security for our country, and of course to get out of inflation. But let's still talk about a lot of issues that we can say is also fueling inflation. You can't divorce these inflation numbers from this fuel subsidy that was taken out last year May by the current government. Will you say to some extent that action and of course the issue in the foreign forex market also contribute to what we're witnessing today?
Right, there are two things that we need to look at, and it also goes back to one, which is for a subsidy, because there are some things that the president are supposed to put in place before a premature policy decision. And I call it premature because if you recall, President Muhammadu Buhari has actually marked about 3 things that will be done before the removal of a subsidy. One is fixing of refinery. As of today, you could see that up to now, no Nigerian refinery is working. And you could see there's a competition coming up now. Dangote is also having an issue with NNPC. It's still issue of refinery, because if your refinery is working, that is what you use to challenge Dangote. It's not by policy that is very hard on Dangote. He's a businessman, he's open to make money. And the second one is the issue of CNG. As of today, how many cars have been converted? For me, I went to Bova. I'm sorry, I'm mentioning organization. I went to particular filling stations because I've gone to other ones. They said they don't have materials. When I got to this one, I want to convert my vehicle. They said I need to pay 730 100,000. Okay, I say I want to pay. Up till now, they've not called me to even come and pay, let alone fix. You know why? There are a lot of people on the queue. And I also got from a good source that even those people that have been able to convert, they are also queue to fuel to get CNG. Look at the problem. Yeah. So, and we see government saying that it's available, it's free, it's that, and up till now, it's much more rhetoric. Even those commercial vehicles that they say the kits are free, let them come out and say we have been able to convert 300. So these are the things that we need to look into. You know, and the third one is a strategic palliative. You know, when you are bringing palliative, you have to, as an economist, we don't look at immediate, because if you give me 100,000 naira now, within 2 months, I assure you, not only me, any household that they are fighting, 2 months is much. You would have exhausted, because and all our problems is not about rice, because you know you're not a nation of using rice to solve every problem.
Exactly.
So now palliative that will go to MSMEs, that will go to manufacturing sector, because these people are very critical. Majority of our employment is, in fact, let's say 85% of employment is in this sector, and this sector have to service the manufacturing sector. So until these people can have the purchasing power, you know, have the capital, which we are talking about the NPR now, to actually do into business. I can tell you a lot of businesses are closing shops every day. In your opening remark, you made mention of companies that have left Nigeria. You made mention of GSK. Do you know how much a drug score is cost? I can tell you yesterday, one of my persons have Qatar, and we need to buy a drug that we used to buy 100. It is now 400 naira. So I don't know. Look at that purchasing power. Look at how it is being eroded simply because of the policy direction of the government. So they need to look at it very, very. It's not bad to come back. You know, it's not bad to come back to an extent. If you cannot come back 100%, bring a succo that will help Nigerians to go forward.
Do you think there's a way out of the continued declining in the value of naira? I know that has quite a whole lot of ripple effects on CPI, consumer price index as well. Right. Because when your currency is losing value on a daily basis against the greenback and so many other European currencies, you will be, you know, as it is now, naira is no longer a store of value.
Right. So let's look at low-hanging fruit that's very closer than the federal government can actually harness. And what is low-hanging fruit? Number one is Dangote. You know, if you look at the cost of importation to Nigeria, which is the highest importation we are doing, which is petroleum, it takes about 37 to 40% of FX. And once you address that, allow Dangote, but it's a serious problem, because we don't even know who is saying the truth from Dangote and even the NNPC. Now, Dangote said, I am importing crude oil, and you cannot say I should not sell in dollar, because I actually imported in dollar. So I'm going to value what I'm selling in that capacity. Now, if you start supplying me crude oil by October in naira, that's how we look at it very well. Now, I see a serious problems here. And what's the problem? Our president is the Minister of Petroleum, and we also have Minister of State Petroleum and Minister of State Gas. What are they actually doing? Because it seems they are not looking into this Nigerian perspective. Dangote is a businessman. We wouldn't stop him. He borrowed money to build that edifice. But take it or leave it. If at all we are buying at the amount we are buying now, I tell you, Dangote have advantage. What's the advantage? He's going to help us in terms of forex, and he's also going to help us in terms of balance of payments and balance of trade. These two things are very key, and that's why I said federal government is only always looking at monetary policy and fiscal policy, and not looking at trade policy, which is the major thing that we have. And Dangote has come. Instead of us to rally around him, give him policy. You know why? I have issue with regulation. Where is NMDPRA, which are supposed to actually regulate the price? They are so silent that NNPC is taking the lead. It's a serious problem that we need to solve.
Indeed. Do you think with the coming up of Dangote, and of course when the demand for forex dropped by 40%, as we're told now, there's going to be, to some extent, a drop in the price of PMS?
Right.
Because that will give strength to the naira.
The major problem is that if you look at the global community, things are decided by dollar, it's as it were. So if we have our own Dangote now getting the crude oil in Nigeria, and producing in Nigeria, there is no doubt that the rush on dollar is going to reduce, because there will be, it's just an issue of demand and supply. When there is a lot of demand, you know, price goes. When there is a lot of supply, people purchasing, looking for it will be, you know, and even the bureau de change will be doing their real job. What is their real job? Is to solve demand for small retail problem, not even major, because now it is changing, and banks are in, you know, in cahoots. I can say that with you know, they work hand in hand.
Exactly.
So this is a major thing that we need. So, but for me, the coming of Dangote would have solved a problem of forex to a large extent, and we should also, and that's what is doing backward integration, import substitution. That is exactly what is happening. It simply means that what you are supposed to import, someone is here, and the same thing should happen to pharmaceutical industry, so that we can really, you know, require less from this international community.
You keep talking about Dangote. There is people were saying that Dangote likes monopoly. He likes to monopolize the markets. NMDPRA that you mentioned also came out to say that they don't want anybody to come and monopolize the crude oil market as well. Maybe part of what NNPCL is trying to do is to break that monopoly. They did suggested that they wanted what we call bilateral monopoly, where Dangote will be the single seller, and of course NNPC will be the single buyer, and of course distribute to the marketers.
So what is the major thing that will fight monopoly?
Probably create free markets. Let every other.
What will create free market is competition. So if 2 out of our refinery is actually working and producing at a particular level, let's not even compete. You know, we have about 5 modular refinery working now. So if we have them working.
But the thing is that there is no data from these modular refineries we're talking about as to suggest the number of barrels of crude oil that they produce in a day.
But you agree with me that if they're up to 2030, it's going to reflect. But it's because of the number. So if we have our refinery working, it will be a serious competition. So if Dangote now say, I want to sell at 900, your refinery say, come and buy at 750. You know, it will bring it. So, and the issue of Dangote selling to NNPC is a strategy. It's strategic to Dangote market. You know why? Dangote want to sell at global price because he actually bought the crude oil at global market. So if the global price is 1,117, you know, Dangote will now say, okay, federal government, I wouldn't want to sell to the market at this amount, but you have to cushion the effect and pay me the gap, which is still subsidy. Is there no subsidy now? It's still subsidy.
They call it under recovery.
Well, any name they call
it. Or shortfall.
Or anything they call it. It is anything that government use its money to reduce the costs to the citizen. It is subsidy.
All right.
And they are making it as if it's not a normal language that is happening everywhere. There's subsidy in one way or the other.
All right. Let us not lose sight of our topic for today. We're still talking on inflation, of course. All these things that you're talking about has adverse effects on the current inflation numbers that we have here. But now let's look at the major issue now. Of course, when inflation numbers as we have it right now, about 32.15%. This has affected the larger economy. It's still very high, even though we're trying to celebrate that it's coming down as well. Because if you look at it, the earning of Nigeria has to some extent declined. The value of the currency in our pocket has depreciated substantially because many Nigerians can no longer actually, you know, cater for their basic needs as it were now. How do you think going forward now, this declining that we are witnessing, you've said that is a fluke, it's not something that's going to continue as well. So do you think at least before we return to the status quo, that's an upward trend, do you think there's going to be some respite for Nigeria?
Well, for me, I don't think it will even reflect, because if you look at it now, the drop itself did not capture the increment in the fuel pump price, and that is the major problem. And the major driver now is that fuel issues. So now the pump price has increases, and it is not captured. That's a serious problem. But that is to reflect. Let me give you an example. You know, Nigeria, we are very, very, when there is no regulation, we want to do what we want to do. Do you know some cars have actually converted, some commercial cars? But as it reflects on the street, most cars, some, let's even say 3%. But if you bought those vehicles, do you even know? because they will still collect the money that the general one are still collecting. Until government push it to an extent that it now becomes so obvious, and they can come with the statistics of it that no, we have converted social conversion. The same thing with this inflation. This marginal decrease cannot reflect as at now. It is when we have it consistently. You recall that even the statistics we are giving is a reflection of what has happened last month. So until it has a continuous, we have seen the trajectory that, okay, had it been we don't have this increment in fuel, we can say, okay, someone like me say, okay, it is likely to have it like that again. But this is going to affect the September report and it's going to reflect negatively. So we wouldn't know the level at which it will go. Maybe it will return to the exact, or it will be also marginal increase.
So you do not think that this trend is more like it's showing that it's a sign that Nigerian economy is moving forward?
It's not sustainable. It's not sustainable.
Indeed. Let's go forward now. Also look at the high inflation rate is worrying for food, especially about 25%. In that the poorest, as of 2019, we have about 60% of the poorest Nigerians spend about 25% of their income on food and other things.
Right.
But as at now, they are spending over 7, some even 90% just to buy food.
It's quite sad in that we now. So if you earn your 100% and you are taking 65-70% on food, tell me how many percentage will you use for this high transportation, let alone school fee? But the sad thing that they are not looking at is that once fuel price increases, school fees increases, everything. Actually, in fact, we will not see the major impact of this increase until maybe next week, maybe next month before, because most people that purchase goods now purchase in the old,
with the old prices.
Yes, they've not gone back to market to actually purchase. So it is when they go back to market, it will now reflect again. It's quite challenging. It's quite challenging.
Indeed, they're quite challenging. There are a lot of issues there with regards to what is going on with inflation. Now, let's begin to, as we custom now, let's bring in a suggestion now, see what government can actually do to ensure that the suffering of Nigeria is alleviated.
Well, first and foremost, we have another problem. That problem is a very big problem. And what's the problem? This flooding, it's another thing we have not taken into account of its effect on the Nigeria economy. So look at Maiduguri, Kano, Kaduna, Jigawa. They are food producing states too. So it will affect. So going forward, I think Nigerians should be, federal government itself should be proactive. And that's, we have issues with them. They are always reactive. Things happen, you rush to look for solution. What have you been doing before that thing actually happens? And that is what actually happened to our subsidy removal. You remove first subsidy without looking at the consequence that will follow follow. So going forward, I think government need to do more. Especially there should be stability in the price of petroleum PMS. It's very, if there is stability in that area, people can now predict. As a businessman, if I'm sure that the price will not go up beyond this, just like what federal government told Labour, that will not increase, and now it has increased, so it has reduced the purchasing power.
Absolutely. So where do you think this leave the minimum wage now of 70,000 naira?
In fact, I have issue when we are.
As at the time the 70,000 naira minimum wage was agreed, the fuel pump price was 517 naira,
and dollar was around 1.213.
Exactly, 1.1.
So the thing is this. I even don't like seeing 70,000. I like to say $40. Because if you are calling 70,000, it has it's
even less than $40.
The value is less than $40. So if you look at you earning $40 for 30 days, I'm sure that cannot even buy you a bag of rice. Perhaps I don't know if people have been buying the government rice of 40,000 because I don't know how well that is going to.
In the UK,
how many people will get it?
In the UK, in 3 or 4 hours, you earn more than $40.
Imagine, and you have to earn it for 30 days, and that's even for government. If you go to some private sector, they don't even mind paying you 40,000 because they want to do what we call, they want to maximize profit. and they want to look at what government does before they can actually move on. So I think these are government should be proactive, not reactive at every issues.
Indeed, government need to be proactive there. You said most of the policies pronouncements so far, we've been told the president says he's a reformer, and of course he's here. He did promise during the campaign that he is here to take some hard economic decision, which is what he's done so far. But the ripple effect on the citizen is indeed what we are trying to talk about there. Do you think government should in any way, tweak some of the policies, probably re-examine them and then look at the impact on the people and of course the long-term benefits of all these policies?
For President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, it's long overdue for him to review, revisit, and rejig its people around that is working for him, because most of the policy they are doing have not shown any positive response. And that's why I said even this marginal decrease is temporal, because the more we are trying to appreciate what they are doing, the more they come with another negative things that will erode that thing. And I can tell you, Nigeria is at the brink. We have been pushed to the limit. Tell me every household that is not feeling this economic negative impact. Our purchasing power has been eroded. So I think government should come and review their policies going forward.
Well, as we wrap up now, let me ask you this. Global economy is also stressed. It's not only Nigeria that is actually going through this. We've seen a lot of topsy-turvy in the global economy. There, of course, the U.S. Federal Reserve is expected to cut interest rate this year, later this month. And of course, we've seen the reflection on that, on what is going on in the crude oil market. It's a place where Nigeria is one of the big players there, even though we don't control how the prices are being managed. Should we blame the government entirely, given the fact that the issues going on is actually global issues?
Right. I will give you an example of UK. As at the time we have issues 1 year ago when President Bola Ahmed Tinubu became president, the UK is also having serious issue. You can see they have rejigged and things has come to normalcy. Check it.
The Prime Minister lost his seat.
Lost his seat because of that. Someone have to, pay the price for that. We're not saying President should lose his seat now, but he should do rejigging and review of those policies. If you have a policy that you put in place for 1 year and it's keeping people suffering the more, it's not alleviating the so-called poverty, that means you have to review. So I think this president should not be adamant. He should review, and as a reformer should be open to some information, should be open to review, should be open for decision, and should be listening to the citizen. So I think Nigeria is at the brink. Nigeria have been pushed to the limit.
But do you think the problem we have is self-inflicted?
It's policy inflicted. I will use that. It's policy direction that is bringing this problem.
All right. Aliyu Ilias, an economist, I must thank you for your time on Business Daily today.
Thank you for having me.
An interesting conversation we're having here. With that is a wrap on the show today. We'll be back again tomorrow. I am Yusuf Akogun.